Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Autism Confidential, the podcast from the National Council on Severe Autism. My name is Jill Escher, and I'm the president of NCSA, and I am your very lucky host today. Today, we have the second attempt to offer you an interview with a really amazing mom and advocate. And I do want to admit, we did tape one and we had a glitch, a technical glitch. And so we now have to retape it. So my apologies to my guest in advance. Michelle McFarland McDaniels, welcome.
Thank you, Jill. No apologies necessary. I'm glad to be here.
And Michelle is a truly amazing mom. She lives in Chicago. She is the mother of a daughter with a severe form of autism. And what makes Michelle stand out is that she is really trying to do something that all of us are desperate for people to do, but very few people are doing. And that is, she is working to create a high quality, engaging adult day program and other services, by the way, for adults with severe autism in Chicago. And she's just a visionary person, a positive person. Really, I was so impressed from the moment that I met her, and I knew that I had to have her on this podcast. Michelle, let's start off talking about you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your daughter?
Yes, my daughter is 25 years old. She is a delightful human being. She lights up the room. If you get to know her, you have no choice but to love her. She's completely irresistible. 99% of the time, she is the best companion in the world. 1% or less of the time, she can engage in some challenging behaviors. And those challenging behaviors can be very intense and very severe. And unfortunately, those behaviors are a barrier to her living her best life and being able to really benefit from the community and to contribute to it in the way that I know she can. So because I have had such difficulty, really it's been impossible to find programming outside of my home to be able to meet her needs and keep her stimulated and engaged. That's why I decided to work with some other parents who also are professionals who have experience with both on a personal and a professional level with challenging behaviors to create a nonprofit that is developing programming for people who have autism or intellectual and developmental disabilities that also have comorbid challenging behaviors. And I do mean the most severe behaviors such as physical aggression, self-injurious behaviors, elopement, or property destruction.
Well, as we know that, with most adult day programs, those are exclusionary criteria,
Yes.
right? Like, I have a 23-year-old son with severe autism, and there wasn't a single program that would accept him because of the severity of his behaviors. So, ostensibly there's this Medicaid waiver that's supposed to fund, adult programming, but in reality, the vendors won't do it in most cases.
That is exactly the experience that I've had.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you. So your daughter aged out of school. Then what happened? Did you find any support for her?
What happened with her is what typically happens. You fall off the cliff. After age 22, there are no additional guaranteed programs. So now you're on your own trying to navigate the adult services landscape. And she has access to the waiver. Unfortunately, she doesn't have access to appropriate programs because I have literally called all of them and they say they are not equipped to deal with people who have challenging behaviors. And there are some good reasons for that. Some of them don't have the staff, some of them don't have the training, some of them don't have the capacity to provide the support that's necessary. Some of them don't have the insurance that's necessary to work with this particular population. But nonetheless, they are deserving of quality programming, and I am still frustrated because no one is providing it. So it's become clear that if this is something that you want for your child, it's something you're going to have to make happen. And, I see a lot of people, I've talked to a lot of parents who have children that are older than my daughter. And what they say is basically, we move because the services we need are not here. And they're hard to find anywhere.
Right.
Um,
Even here in California, where supposedly we have a great system.
mhm.
My experience has not been that it's such a great system. My son is essentially excluded from programming.
Same here. And to be told that your child with a disability is unfortunately too disabled for the programs for people who have disabilities is very disheartening. And
Yeah.
the only people that have a stake in changing this situation are people who are experiencing it. And that's exactly where I am. This is unacceptable. I'm not going to tolerate this. To say, what are we supposed to do? Just have no programs for our children? That is not okay with me. So I'm going to do something about it, because
Yeah, I mean,
everyone deserves to have access to quality programs. If they have challenging behaviors, then what you do is you identify the behaviors, you figure out a plan for managing the behaviors, and you move forward with providing quality programming. And that's where I am.
and that's brilliant and the right thing to do. But I will say one thing. I'm almost at the point where I think that kids like ours need their own type of waiver, right? Instead of being sort of lumped in with the general IDD kind of waivers, there should be something called like the enhanced behavioral waiver or something, that so that you have this level playing field across the states. Well, it'll never be level because the states have so much influence over what's actually offered, but still, a special waiver, at the federal level that provides, for greater staff ratios, for greater staff training, right? For behavior management aspects, all those things that you don't necessarily find in your standard program. I really think that this population has grown so much. This is a huge crisis across 50 states. We really have to be thinking that way. I don't know exactly how we get there, but it shouldn't be up to people like you, Michelle, to reinvent the wheel, right? In every city across our nation.
I agree. I'm hoping to spark a movement so that in every city we have programs that are available to families that have loved ones that have really challenging behaviors and severe needs. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. At the federal level, there needs to be programming and funding for these programs that recognize that there are some people who have exceptionally challenging behaviors, and they are not being accommodated in the programs that are currently extant, and they need to develop a system of supports specifically for people who have these challenging behaviors and who
Yeah.
are very severely impacted by autism.
Oh, totally, totally. I do want to ask you about I just want to say one thing, actually. I think some people listening to this will say, well, someone like my son and someone like your daughter probably should avail themselves of ICF programming, intermediate care facility programming, which in many cases, these programs are equipped to handle, the complexities and the behaviors that, we see in our kids. And I would say to some extent that is true. That is absolutely an appropriate option for a lot of adults with severe autism, but it's not appropriate for others. And so, what we need is we have to make the HCBS, the Home and Community-Based Services System funded by Medicaid, also work for this population. We need both. And I just want to put that editorial comment in because I know some people listening will be like, ICFs. Anyway, Michelle, back to what I was saying. Let's dig into your vision, because here you are, you're on the south side of Chicago. You're a former educator. You have this idea and you began building this idea, right? You haven't established the program yet. You're in the process of it. Can you tell me about the germination of this idea and how it developed?
Yes, it developed out of sheer frustration with the lengths that we have to go to just get basic things accomplished. For example, my daughter needed to see the dentist. And at the time, there was a lot of publicity about problems with police interactions. We're African American. One of my concerns was if we happened to be in our vehicle and my daughter became escalated, what happens if the police stop us? What would happen is my daughter would not comply with them, and they would not necessarily listen to what we had to say, because if you have someone that's agitated and they're telling this person to do something and they're not doing it, their focus would be on getting them to comply. And she would not do that, which would put us all in danger. And the other dynamic that I was concerned about was a out of control carjacking in Chicago. So I was concerned because I'm like, okay, the same situation would occur with my daughter if we were carjacked with her in the vehicle, as if the police were to pull us over. If someone told us to get out of the vehicle, they're pointing a gun at us, my daughter wouldn't have responded the way they would have expected her to respond, which again puts us all in danger. So what I ended up having to do was hire a security firm that had armed security guards who were off-duty Chicago police officers. And I specifically wanted Chicago police officers because we live in Chicago and we would be going to a dental office in Chicago. So I ended up hiring them to wait outside our home, follow us to the dental office, wait for the dental appointment to be over, and follow us back home to make sure that we made it safely, with the idea being if we were stopped by the police, they could get out, show their badge and explain the situation, and we could be on our way. And if something worse happened, they would be there to hopefully intervene and get us some help so that no one would get hurt. So we ended up spending an additional $500 just for the security.
Just to go to the dentist.
Just to go to the dentist. Because, there's a real fear with families that have a loved one that has challenging behaviors of calling police, because you've seen it time and time again on the news. You call the police for help and it ends up becoming a tragedy. Or someone else calls the police because they don't understand your loved one's behavior, or they're frightened by it, and that person ends up getting hurt or killed. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for our community to educate the police about our needs and challenges, and for us to work collaboratively with law enforcement to make sure things like this don't continue to occur. But my current reality is this is what's going on now. So I have to focus on my current reality, and I have to live my life according to that.
Now, have you found it necessary or prudent to have, I would call it bodyguard, security, to take your daughter everywhere? Or was there something about that particular trip?
Not everywhere. It was just that, during the pandemic, we weren't going a whole lot of places.
Yeah. Okay.
During the height of the pandemic, I'm not going to say it's past tense, it's still going on.
Yeah.
But, at that time, we weren't going a lot of places, but there were a record number of carjackings, and also a lot of tension around law enforcement interactions. So that was one of the main reasons for that. It was the timing, not necessarily the location, but what was going on in the community at that time.
Yeah, it was combustible. There's no question.
Yes, but there is prep that's involved in taking my daughter anywhere.
Yeah, yes. I could understand. I mean, last time I took my son to the doctor, it took 3 of us to get him to the doctor. So I fully understand. It's almost a military operation sometimes.
Seriously.
To get them out.
At the doctor's office, they have to hide, she used to have certain rooms at the doctor's office. They have to remove, certain items from the doctor's office and make certain things inaccessible, to make sure that she doesn't get into things that she's not supposed to get into. And also, if we go
Mm,
somewhere to like a store, we have to call in advance and let them know we're coming. This is what's going on. If she behaves in this way, this is how we would like to handle it. It's almost like having an advanced team to be able to
yeah.
travel somewhere with her.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, so now you're trying to do, this amazing thing and try to develop a place where she will be included and she will be accepted, right? And where she can be herself. So let's go back and tell me, like, where are you now in this process and where is your vision?
Okay, so we formed our nonprofit in 2021.
And tell everyone the name.
It's called Thrive Enrichment Services.
Okay.
So Thrive was formed last year. And since then, we have been researching treatment models, programming models, looking into funding sources, basically working on laying the infrastructure necessary for us to be able to provide services. So until we are able to provide direct services in a facility, which we are raising funds to try to acquire, what we've decided to do is to make ourselves available for individuals and families that need us, to provide information about available resources that are currently available, and to connect people with resources and services that are available in the community.
I do want to interject that Illinois does not have the greatest reputation when it comes to adult services and adult residential services as well.
Services can be very hard to come by in Illinois. You have to be very determined, and you have to be not easily dissuaded.
Yeah,
And
right.
you have to sometimes make it a part-time job to follow up, especially now with a lot of people who work in state agencies working remotely. You have to sometimes call repeatedly to get someone on the phone, or
Mhm.
make a number of attempts to get an email returned. But just for people out there that are dealing with this as well, just keep at it. Eventually someone will respond.
So, okay. So you're helping people now, as you try to get licensed, right? And you try to, create all the necessary corporate organization elements. You have a board, right?
Yes, we have a board.
So, um, uh, and then you have to be, I guess, I don't know what you call it in Illinois and California, we say vendorized, right? So that you're eligible to get the Medicaid funding for your program. So where are you in that process of being, of having a cash flow, right?
Well,
To
we
do
have
your work.
a similar process in Illinois. It's basically becoming providerized. So
Hmm.
we've applied to become providers with the state, and we submitted our application a few months ago. Have followed up on it. Unfortunately, found out that the person we submitted it to, who was in charge of the process at that time, retired at some point during that process, and we were not aware that they had retired. And once I sent like a third request email out for a request on for an update on the status, I found out that he had retired, and we ended up having to submit it to another person. So hopefully we are somewhere along the pipeline for its approval at this point, but it can take a while. It took us, we applied for to participate in the orientation, which you can't even apply until you go through the orientation process. So we were on the waiting list for months, close to a year, just to be
Hmm.
able to get to the orientation.
Oh,
So that's
wow.
a
That's
hopeful sign.
crazy.
It is, but it's a hopeful sign to me. If you have that many people, that many entities that are interested in becoming providers in Illinois, that means there's hope for more programming for people like my child. So I'm glad. I mean, it was a little frustrating waiting and waiting and waiting, but I'm glad that the reason we were waiting was because there are other organizations that are lining up to provide services, not necessarily to people that have the highest needs, but it's just great to have more options for people all over the spectrum.
That is also true. So assuming that you are providerized, obviously I haven't looked at your books and your business plan, but will you have will it be financially possible to create staffing ratios, right, and create the support level, right, that's necessary for your daughter and others like her?
It will be. Medicaid waiver will be just one potential funding stream. We're also looking at private insurance, private pay. We're not excluding people because they're not part of the waiver program. Also, we're looking at Medicaid funding. And in addition to that, we intend to have an academy for people that are under age 22 that, so there will be a school program, and the school program will provide the bulk of the funding. That's what we're anticipating. And the way we would leverage those funds would make it possible for us to be able to support all of the programs from the school to the adult programs.
That's really interesting that you mentioned that because my kids have gone to a school here in California that also has an associated adult program. Well, the adult program is systemically underfunded, or systematically, I should say, underfunded. And the school program ends up, in a sense, subsidizing the adult program.
That's exactly what I expect to happen here.
Yeah.
And with the express purpose of making sure that the people who attend the school don't end up falling off the cliff.
Yeah, but I also want to say they have to do a lot of private fundraising, right, for the school to make that happen.
We are
So, yeah,
preparing for that.
yeah, have fun, with all those fundraisers. But it's very much needed. I know you're building a network out there, and you're building a board of people who will support you. Now, do you see this being center based? Do you see an actual building, right, to house some of your programs?
Yes, most of the programs will be in a building because we will have day habilitation, vocational training, their clinical and expressive therapies. A lot of them need to be in a specific location, but we also plan to have remote and mobile programming. Specifically, we intend to have a mobile crisis response team so that families that are having severe behavior escalations that need help on site will be able to go to them to provide them with the help that they need, with trained professionals that can help them de-escalate the situation, get whatever emergency or crisis intervention they need, and then work on helping them to develop a plan going forward so that they can be safe in their homes with their loved one. And they also will be able to be connected with the outside resources they need so that this is not an ongoing trauma and drama for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've been there. It's a big need. But let's dig into your vision a little bit. How do you see the day working for your daughter or somebody like her? Like, can you take me through what you think the program will look like from, let's just from 9 to 3, right? Whatever hours, you might be functioning.
Yes. Well, first, before people would even start programming, the program would start before they even enroll. We would observe, we would meet with that person's care team, see them at home, any places they go in the community, work on developing a functional behavior assessment so we can determine what the problem behaviors are and what is fueling them and figure out a plan for how to manage them. And then there will be intensive behavior support within the program. When they come in, from the time that they are transported in, transportation is a huge problem because some people resist transportation. So we would have specialized transportation that was equipped with not only the driver and an aide, but the one-on-ones that work with people will work with them from the time they left their home to the time they were brought back home. So they would have one-on-one support. People that have exceptionally challenging behaviors that need to be managed very hands-on would have 2-on-1, or if necessary 3-on-1 for a short period of time, just as long as it's necessary for them to be stabilized. When they would come in, people would go to their respective programs depending on what they're doing. They would be working on learning life skills according to their specific plans. Everybody would have a personalized plan based on their needs and their interests and their goals. They would also work on vocational skills depending on what their interests were. We plan to have an array from horticulture to culinary, and just be very focused on working with people on things that they are interested in. We intend to have a maker's lab and a creator studio, so we can build programming around individuals. If you like making pottery, then we will create a program around that for you. If you like making music, we will create a program around that for you. For people that want to be entrepreneurs, we would have business support to help them monetize the things that they do. So for example, if they grow herbs, we'd help them to develop a means of making that profitable. If they wanted to sell art designs, we would help them develop a website and get their designs online. And then any funds that they earned as a result of their creativity would go into an ABLES account or a special needs trust for them, or some other financial vehicle like a Coverdale account, to make sure that they're able to benefit from what they do, but also they're able to not be prevented from being eligible for any government funding that they may be entitled to.
Got it. Have you, I'm curious, do you have any relationship at all with Misericordia on the north side of Chicago?
We don't have a relationship with the organization like a partnership, but I do know people from Misericordia. In fact, I have a person there that I have been in contact with for a number of months, and she's been giving me some insight and connecting me with some other individuals and resources to help us to develop our programs.
Because Misericordia is, I think, the preeminent example in your area, and I would say almost in the country, right? And it's residential, but it's a very complex program with many moving parts, but it does have this vocational component, right? Where they grow food, they make food, they have recycling, right? They have other things that people learn and do. And what they don't have is really a behavioral program, right? They serve IDD, but not, from what I could tell, not kids like ours.
Exactly.
Yeah. But, they have the know-how, they have incredible community connections. They've been around for a long time, and I just feel like they could be a resource for you.
They are, and you're spot on. They have wonderful programs. They do a lot of good work with a lot of populations. There was a program I had looked into for my daughter, but she's not a candidate because they don't accept people that have challenging behaviors. They're not equipped for that. So I want to do something that's a lot like Misericordia, but specifically focus on people with challenging behaviors. I mean, when I was a teacher, I wanted to teach only in high need schools because I felt that everybody deserved to have an outstanding teacher, regardless of how much money was in their bank account or what zip code they lived in. Same thing with people with challenging behaviors. I think that everybody with a disability deserves to have high quality, awesome programs. And if they don't exist, that means we have to create it.
Well, I think, Michelle, like if you succeed in doing even like 1/5 of what you are setting out to do on your quest, it would be an amazing gift to your community. and a gift to the rest of us in the autism world, because we would have a model to follow. And I want to say that, what you just said about following their interests, right? If they just want to spend all day doing music, all day doing dance, all day, whatever it is that captures them, and that motivates them. I mean, I think that that's an important model that's really missing right now. Something that's truly person centered, right?
Yes,
Truly person centered. And I think that's what you're aiming at. And I think that's the right philosophy, right, for this contingent. Everybody's different, but I know for my son, if I put him in some, day program that decided, they're going to play dominoes in the morning and then they're going to go to the bowling alley, he'd be like, out of there. I'm doing this. He would need something that's really Johnny focused. So I think that's really commendable. But we are at the end of our time here. I was told to keep my podcast short. They were going on for too long. So, but it was very nice to be able to introduce you to our audience. And what I'd like to do is, after maybe you're a little bit further along in your journey, have you back for an update, Michelle.
absolutely. I'd love to.
And let's end by telling people, where can people learn more about you? Where can they find you?
Okay. Our permanent website is still under development. We expect it to be up and running within the next few weeks. I don't want to put a specific date on it because every time I do that, it backfires. But anyway, they can check out our website at www.iwillhelpyouthrive.org. So iwillhelpyouthrive.org.
And the videos that you created, are those at that website, or?
There are links to our YouTube channel on the
Okay.
website, also our Facebook page and our Twitter. So all of the links to all of our social media are on the website.
Okay. Okay. So we're big fans of you, Michelle, and really kudos to you for your creativity and your tenacity, and everything that you're doing. So thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you, and you have a wonderful day.
You too. Signing off.
All right, bye-bye.